and a lot of players weighed in on the format for the game. Take a listen.
I ain't gonna lie, Wemby set the tone. Like, he came out playing hard, so it's hard not to match that. So that's what happened.
It's a game we love, you know. It's a game I personally cherish. So being competitive is the least I can do.
It's for you guys to enjoy and, you know, for us to come out and compete and have fun too. So, you know, if the format is making us play well, then we could keep going.
I like this format. I think it makes us compete because it's only 12 minutes and the 3 different teams, you separate the guys, and I think it was really good.
So, Antoine, you were a 3-time All-Star. You played in the '98 All-Star game famously at the end of Michael Jordan's career. Did this format work? Did you like it?
Yeah, you got to like it because of the competitiveness. I mean, even though I'm a traditionalist, I'm old school, but you have to like it because these guys actually competed a little bit. They played hard. When you look at it, the games were competitive. I think besides the last game, but I think you had to do something to get these guys to compete. And I think mixing them up, the Europeans we know are dominating the NBA. You can arguably say you got 4 of the top 5 guys are European guys. So you got it. I think the league did a good job of kind of separating, making the Americans want to play and make sure that they have an opportunity to beat the overseas guys. So it brought a little excitement to it. It was good to see the games kind of played a little more competitive.
So, I've always said that the All-Star game is a little bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I love it. Like, one of my favorite memories of childhood was going to the All-Star game in 1997. I went with my dad in Cleveland for the NBA at 50 when they celebrated the 50 greatest players ever. And I was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. Everybody is there, and it was a celebration of it. And so I'm in. I watch it every year, and I love it. But the last few years, it has gotten embarrassing. And I do not think the format was the reason why this worked yesterday. The format was fine, and it was, you know, leading into the Olympics and the NBC partnership, and so the Team USA versus the world thing. Like, I do think that it made some sense given it being an Olympic year. But to me, Victor Wembanyama, who's trying to stake his claim as the next face of the NBA, when he did his media availability on Saturday, and he did it even earlier in the week, but he kind of called everybody out. And we could see this headline. Wembanyama vows to bring competitiveness to All-Star game. And then you heard Anthony Edwards on the court after. To me, you could go back to East-West. You could do Team USA versus the world. You could do old guys against young guys. Whatever you want to do, as long as they care. Like, as long as there is just a modicum of professionalism and effort. I'm not asking for there to be flagrant fouls. I'm not asking for it to be the equivalent of Game 7 of the NBA Finals, but just a little bit of give a damn, and you can put on a show and have some pride. So to me, Willie, it was not the format. It was effort. And so if you love the format, great, we can talk about it. But to me, clearly, the tone was set by Victor Wembanyama. If you loaf, I'm 7-7. I'm gonna pin this shot against the rim and embarrass you. To me, this was a question of effort, not format.
Yeah, but the format provoked change, right? Because you got to think about it. Game 1 was the young guys versus the world, right? So it allowed the older guys to sit back and say, all right, let's see if Wemby's actually going to show up and be the bully he said he was going to be. Let's see how Ant-Man was going to respond. We saw both of that. And I think because of Game 1 and because of how Anthony Edwards responded and how Wemby started the game, we saw a competitive outfit that we just haven't seen these past couple years. I'm going to be honest with you, DP. I had no plans on watching this. I'm going to be honest. I didn't, because of what we've seen in the past. I was like, I'm not going to waste my Sunday listening to a bunch of billionaires complain about, oh, we have to play in an All-Star game, right? I was very much going to say, hey, man, I'm going to do my daddy duty list and hopefully eat my chicken by 6 o'clock so I can be ready to go for the show today. What we saw was a competitive competition against guys who actually put forth an effort that we were used to seeing. We're talking about rebounding, closing out on shots, pick and rolls, LeBron actually running back in transition, guys actually showing up and fighting. So for me, I loved it, and I think it was because of the format. Now listen, the Stripes got, they played 3 straight games. It was a wrap at the end of the game. But I think if you was to put a cap on the overall night, I thought it was it was a win for the NBA, Twan.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think we also got to look at this. When I came into the league, the game was played really hard. With the Michael Jordans, the Isaiah Thomases, those guys played hard. Larry Bird. So when I was coming in, those guys were transitioning out. Then you have we came in the league, and our game was played, I think, pretty competitive. I was lucky enough to play in 3 All-Star games. I never heard guys talking about not playing hard. But also too, I'm gonna put a little light on it. If the prize money is totally different. you know if you won, like I think when I played, you won 50,000 was for first place if you won, and then the second place team got 25,000. So guys play hard. Then I know the prize money has gotten much higher now for the guys. That was an incentive to play really hard for the All-Star game. So I think it's different ways you can make it exciting. But I grew up being a fan of the game and like couldn't wait for an opportunity to play in the All-Star game and showcase against the world. I think now it's totally different because I even like it if the uniforms to me are important. Getting exclusive uniforms, not even, that stuff is important. Everything about the All-Star weekend was special, and we just have to get back to that, performing in front of. I used to love to see how many celebrities were going to be in the front row. You want to, see against, play against in front of those guys. So everything about the All-Star weekend is about that. It's about showcasing the league and putting the best product on the floor. But guys got to compete. You know what I mean? That's what I like yesterday. They competed. I don't know if the format is going to stick because we got to think about it. Are the Europeans going to consistently be good for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years? They probably will.
Yes.
Yeah. But, yes, I said they probably will. So if that's the case, this format works really, really well.
Yeah, I think that we might get to a point where it can be 12-12, like Team USA against the world. That would work. Twan, it's funny that you bring that up about like wanting to perform in front of people. Anthony Edwards said it, and I know you guys might think this is crazy, but I actually believe it. Like Anthony Edwards said his favorite person in the world is Barack Obama, and he wanted to put on a show in front of him. If you remember on a podcast with Tyrese Halliburton like a year ago, President Obama was like, "You guys got to give more effort in the All-Star game." Like I actually believe that if Barack Obama was courtside, it should be like Rihanna, Barack Obama, Sydney Sweeney, put Leo DiCaprio, like put people that Dr. J, like put people that you want to impress courtside and be like, no, you have to put on a show. Like Twan, if that was courtside, if it was Rihanna, Barack Obama, and Dr. J, I'd imagine how could you loaf through a game like that with those people in attendance? I know it sounds ridiculous, but I actually think that it made a little bit of a difference last night.
No, actually, you make a whole lot of sense. I'll take him to the regular season. I love to play in New York because you're going to play in front of Spike Lee and the stars in New York. In L.A., Jack Nicklaus and those guys in the front row. I mean, I think that's what we guys get up for, to play in front of some people that we see on TV that we admire. That's something special for NBA players to do, to be able to perform in front of that. That's what we've grown up watching. So to get that back and get guys that believe in that is great, and that's going to be great to see. I do like the NBA for at least taking a chance and really trying to figure this out, because I don't know if you guys would have thought about it. I never would have thought about putting the Europeans up against the Americans. I just wouldn't have thought of that. So I think that was very creative and innovative to put that into play. And like you guys say, if it can hold and stick, which I think it will, I mean, we might have something here for the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think, they got the idea partially from what hockey did with the Four Nations, which worked out. And again, I remember Kobe Bryant taking it seriously, and Dwayne Wade Dwayne Wade broke Kobe's nose in an All-Star game, because you were trying to keep up with the level of competition of the guys before you. So Victor Wembanyama coming out there and be like, I'm playing hard.
Yeah, I mean,
because Jokic did not play hard. Everybody didn't play hard. But if Victor Wembanyama is going to be in the league for 15 years playing hard, that's going to make a difference.
And also think about what else we saw. We saw Kawhi Leonard show up. We saw vintage Kawhi Leonard. Like we saw Kawhi, how he played with the Spurs and how he played with Toronto. Like he showed up and put a show on in his building. He's been missing, even though he's been having a relatively good year. Nevertheless, man, we saw the stars rise up to the occasion. And I think also, man, if you are the world team who didn't have Giannis, right, who didn't have SGA, you now have to go into next year like, oh, we'll be back. Right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. This is what y'all did? Oh, y'all think y'all arrived? Oh, we be back. And so if you're the world, man, this has extra momentum going into next season. I think it was a win overall for the night.
All right, so let's get to what the story of the weekend was in terms of like a macro issue facing the NBA, and it was front and center at Adam Silver's press conference. It was the first question that he was asked. He was asked about tanking and what he's willing to do or not do in order to fix the issue, and there were multiple questions on the subject. All right, Antoine, I have a lot of feelings on this, but I will begin with you as the NBA champion and three-time All-Star. How do you fix tanking in the NBA?
It's going to be tough to do because I was in a situation when I was the Celtics after my first year. We won 15 games. So we had an opportunity going into the second year where we could possibly have 2 lottery picks. And I just felt like my rookie year, I mean, we kind of shut it down the second half of the season. And as a rookie, I'm just playing. I'm playing 40 minutes a night. I'm trying to acclimate myself to the league. But I felt like, necessarily we wasn't putting our best foot forward, but it's tough to do because you're trying to build it. It's hard to build through free agency because every team doesn't have money. And usually you have to build through the draft. So I do see why teams say, hey, look, let's build through the draft. We can't make any progress this year. We can't make the playoffs. So now let's play our young guys. I have no problem with that. And then sometimes you may sit your veterans late in the year, last 20, 25 games, you lessen their minutes. But to the integrity of the game and playing the game, we shouldn't do that. We should compete night in and night out. But unfortunately, I think it plays a part. I think teams necessarily wouldn't necessarily want to win a game that's not meaningless. You know what I mean? They don't want to win that game. It's not going to improve them. If they can get a better pick in the draft, they're going to do that. So, but I was a part of a team that we was in that situation where we had 2 lottery picks coming up. We won 15 games. I was on a team that was 15-67. Not saying we could have won 35 games, but we probably could have did a little better than 15-67.
So there's 2 conversations or points that need to be acknowledged here. Like the first one I think is what you were speaking to. Like tanking is smart. Like under the current rules that largely allow it, like a team like Utah, who if they don't finish in the bottom 8 or at the top 8 of the draft, they lose their pick to Oklahoma City. Right. Like they are highly incentivized in a great draft class to get a top pick. So I understand why Utah management wants to lose. It doesn't mean, tanking is smart if it's allowed. It just shouldn't be allowed. Like the team, understandably, if it is only going to be punished by money, these teams are worth $4, $5, $6, $8 billion. You fine them $500,000, it means nothing to them.
Yeah, it's noise at that point.
Right. You have to really be willing to be punitive and not say, Utah, you cannot sit players in the fourth quarter of games before Valentine's Day. Like, the games have to mean something. And I watched that whole Adam Silver press conference, and I thought that was the story of the weekend. He seemed angry, he seemed embarrassed, and he seemed open to everything. Like, he said that everything was on the table, including straight up taking away draft picks from teams.
I think that's where we're at, though, DP.
I do too, but he hasn't. Like, the Mavericks a couple of years ago, they blatantly tanked at the end of the year. They got fined, a mid-high 5-figure amount, whatever it was. Maybe it was 6-figure amount. I don't remember exactly. But they got fined a couple $100,000, which is 6 figures. But they didn't lose their draft pick. So who cares? It meant nothing. I think putting in the pick protection idea is a good one. Saying you cannot pick in the top 4 of consecutive drafts is a good idea. But if these little rule changes don't eliminate tanking, and you have to straight up take draft picks away from teams, or drastically one day talk about getting rid of the draft entirely and do a rookie free agent system, you cannot allow your games to mean nothing, because that will turn off your product.
But I think Twan can agree to this. Players don't tank. It's the front office and coaches that do the tanking.
No doubt.
As players, we just show up and do our job. When you start seeing guys who are healthy sitting when there's a competitive game going on, that's a problem. When you start looking at rosters getting weakened solely because there's a race to the bottom, that's the problem. What's another problem is right now, a lot of these guys, it's out of their hands, right? There's nothing.
I don't blame the players at all.
No.
I don't blame the players at all.
Right, but we're the one, weird because I'm sitting here with Twan, so I'm acting like I played in the NBA, so my bad, Twan. But I'm sitting here saying, these are the guys who get ridiculed, right? Because if I'm getting pulled in the third, even though you paid your ticket to see me finish in the fourth because I'm a closer, that's not a me problem, right? That's a front office and league problem. So these guys are facing the wrath. I do agree with you, DP. I think right now, if you start throwing out money to a bunch of billionaires and you're fining them $500K, $100K, that's a slap on the wrist. If you start threatening draft picks, because the ultimate aim in tanking is the ability to get the best player. And think about, tanking is the only strategy in sports where if you lose, you get the best player. Like that's a problem in itself. So nevertheless, the system needs to be fixed. And I agree with you. I think right now, it's threatening the integrity of the game to the point where it's hard to watch because you don't know what you're getting on an in and out basis.
And I think Adam, go ahead, Twan, real quick.
I would just add this too, and let's be honest. When you get a draft like we're gonna probably have this year, you guys, we got a ton of great young talent in the draft this year. When you're possibly talking about 10 to 15 guys that can probably change a franchise, that's when we start to hear about this tanking stuff. You know, when it's a good college product coming into the league, that's when you hear this. So the league has to be aware of this. We got to, you know, start paying attention to this. And then you'll know, because guys, it's not the players, because players have incentives in their contract. You know that they got games played, you know, scoring tight. They got all type of different bonuses in their contract. So players want to play, especially if healthy. They want to play the 82 games because they got too many things riding on it. So they don't want to do it. So you're just coming from up top, and they're banking on these draft classes. I think we're hearing about it this year, and we'll talk more about it because this draft class is so deep. Everybody wants to be in this draft. You know, last year was a little different. Everything was about Cooper Flagg last year. It was just about the one pick. This year, everybody wants to be in the draft because you're talking about potentially 8 to 15 guys that can change a franchise.
Twan, good stuff. And yeah, to be clear, I do not put this on players, coaches, or general managers. It's the commissioner's job to fix this. We'll talk to Antoine Walker a little bit later on in the show. But we've got major news, Willie, coming out of the NFL. One of the most explosive players of this generation, Tyreek Hill, is available in an expected salary dump. The Miami Dolphins have released Tyreek Hill. In addition to, they got rid of Bradley Chubb today, so Miami into full rebuild mode. But Tyreek Hill, if healthy, coming off massive knee injury, he's been flirting with the Chiefs. Now, this is not from today, but this is, you know, saying he needed to go home. People thought, is he referencing Atlanta? Is he referencing Kansas City? He also put something out when Eric Bieniemy returned back. Tyreek Hill has openly talked about his fondness for his time in Kansas City, so everyone is going to connect those dots. Do you expect a reunion for Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs?
I don't, man, and we got to be careful. Nostalgia will get you in trouble. You're talking about a 32-year-old quarterback coming off a major knee injury, and we're looking at a team right now, valid they're deficient at the receiver position because because Marquise Brown is going to be a free agent along with Juju Smith. Nevertheless, man, you're also talking about if you're the Chiefs, man, you have some serious cap issues, right? Like, they're in the business of shopping for a low-value receiver instead of an impact guy like Tyreek Hill. And when you don't know if you're even going to get the same guy back, I think if you're the Chiefs right now, you have to focus all your eggs on get all your attention on getting Travis Kelce back in the building because he was the ultimate security blanket for Patrick Mahomes. And you got to figure out, you got this damn good Sam linebacker and Leo Chanel, who I think should remain a Chief, and you got to keep him in the building. So I think they have some other needs. I understand of looking back into the, you know, in the record book, you say, hey, man, when we was them, we had this guy on the roster, but I don't think he's him anymore solely because of that knee injury.
The knee injury is massive, right? And neither one of us are doctors because it's not just an ACL tear. It's multiple ligaments and the dislocation, and he's going to be, you know, 32 years old. So what I guess what I would say is he can't be the move to fix the offense, but he can be a move to fix the offense. Like, if you are good, like, because they're going to restructure deals, right? They can restructure Mahomes' deal. They can restructure Trey Smith's deal, do something with Chris Jones. They're going to be able to free up the cap space. And I don't know how much Tyreek Hill is going to command on the open market. Like, he might be on a one-year prove-it deal coming off of that injury. But if we look at what Tyreek Hill did in terms of production, like, on a per-game basis, and again, this is pre-injury, I understand that.
Yeah.
But since leaving the Chiefs, per game, receiving yards per game, catches per game, yards per catch. This is still a top 10 receiver in football. So if I was saying, okay, I need to bring the light show back to Kansas City, well, it hasn't been there since he left.
Correct.
So is he the only thing to bring back? No, but if you use the 9th pick in the draft on offense and you add another piece at right tackle if you replace Juwan Taylor, and you add Tyreek Hill, like if it's like a three-pronged approach and Tyreek Hill is one of the 3 prongs, I think that's totally reasonable. But just saying, no, we're going to bring back the light show because of Tyreek Hill, it's not 2019 anymore.
Well, I also got to tell you the reason why he was relevant, he had the impact he had during his time as a Chief because they had a run game, right? And when you have a run game, that forces a load of box, and then you can blow the top off of defense. Right now, they don't have a run game, right?
Yeah.
So now you're talking about an aging tight end in Travis Kelce. You have a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes who's coming off an ACL injury. Now you got another guy coming off an ACL injury. Like, let's keep it a buck. It ain't it anymore, right? Like, sometimes you can look at the pictures and it's like, yeah, I used to have once a hot girlfriend. Then you look at her Facebook, she gained 30 pounds, right? Like, so at some point you gotta realize at the best move for the Chiefs right now is when you were in championships and you were dominating playoff games is when you had a defense. They got to get back to reinvesting in that defense because you going into next season, you can lose Trent McDuffie. And that's going to be a major blow to that defense, especially on the back end, because that's one of the strengths of their team. So offensively, they're going to have to figure it out, but defensively, you're really going to have to revitalize what that defense was, and why you was making those playoff runs was because of that defense.
They certainly have plenty of issues. I'm a little surprised because I'm not at all saying that Tyreek Hill is going to come out here and command like a $30 million per year, multi-year set. I don't think he's going to command that type of money at his age coming off of it. But I would think basically any team would be willing to roll the dice on Tyreek Hill.
Not with that knee. Because
his
game is speed. His game is stop and go. His game is blowing the top off defense, putting him on the island where cornerbacks are literally afraid of his speed. You're talking about a guy coming off an injury right now. By the way, he's been playing in Miami, right? Now he has to go back to Kansas City where it does get cold again.
Sure.
So all those things play a factor, and you're talking about, establish yourself in an offense that you haven't been a part of in quite some time. I think there's a lot of ifs for a team that's looking to kind of just get back on par. And I don't know if he's the answer because of his injuries.
Do you have a team that you would like? Because where I would sit is, man, it's not much risk and it's all reward. Because if he's bad and it's a one-year deal and we're not giving him a ton of money or it's an incentive-based.
Well, if he's bad, who you have then? Who else do you have?
Well, I guess that's kind of what my point was. It's like if you use the 9th pick, so, there's people talking about them taking Love, the running back out of Notre Dame, and trying to make him like a Jahmyr Gibbs type. Okay, well now that is a major thing that you've done. If you had an offensive lineman and the 9th pick is a weapon and Tyreek Hill, it's like, okay, if Tyreek Hill doesn't work out, it's fine. Like, Marquise Hollywood Brown hasn't always worked out for them. Like, I'm not expecting Tyreek Hill to come back and be Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm expecting him to be a guy who can produce but does not necessarily need to be wide receiver one.
Yeah, but you're expecting him to have an impact. If there was a team for him to land on, if I'm being totally honest, if the Colts get rid of Michael Pittman Jr., I would like to see him as a Colt. Because even if you don't get the same cheater, you still have Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor on the offensive line, and whatever you do at quarterback, you'll figure out in the offseason. But there's enough if he's not that guy. So I would like to see him land on the Colts, if not the Chiefs, on another team.
Well, it'll be a massive story going out throughout the offseason where Tyreek Hill, who assuredly will be a Hall of Famer, ends up playing next season. But now, yes, I do love talking about this with Willie Colon and my good friend.
You're just not positive when you talk about it.
All right, well, we'll get into it. Andrew Fillipponi from 93.7, The Fan in Pittsburgh, will join us here in a second. When will Aaron Rodgers make his announcement? Jeremy Fowler says both sides are still open to a return, and we'll see when it's coming down. But, Willie, are you optimistic about a Mike McCarthy-Aaron Rodgers return?
I am optimistic, and I'm optimistic because I feel like once McCarthy got the job, I think priority one was having open dialogue with Aaron Rodgers and feeling where he was at in his transition on either coming back or hanging it up. Nevertheless, man, I think for a lot of people are saying, man, we've seen the ceiling. We've seen the act. I think we're done with Aaron Rodgers show. And I had to remind the people, and this is not what the Steelers do. They're always going to be a present franchise. They're always going to be in the billing of winning games. I understand this opens the window now that you have a new head coach of kind of saying, hey, roll out the young guy or going to the draft and get a young guy and let's see what happens and build for the future. But the Steelers feel like they can still compete. I've said it time after time. The best team doesn't win the Super Bowl, the most opportunistic. And I think Aaron Rodgers, as a quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, gives the Steelers an opportunity to win football games and hopefully land in the playoffs and make a run. I know it hasn't happened, right? But nevertheless, it's good to be hopeful and wishful than saying, hey, starting the season realizing, man, we don't have a shot. Pony.
I give them no shot with him. I'm not wishful or hopeful whatsoever. I think the ceiling with Aaron Rodgers back on the Steelers is being mediocre again because that's what he was last year. His record, his stats in games versus great teams. You talk about, get in and then hope you have a shot or a prayer. He was horrible against the playoff teams they played. Look at these numbers here. 1-5 record, 14 points per game, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, plus 2 fumbles on top of that. If the Steelers bring back Aaron Rodgers, to me, it'll be the worst decision they've made as a franchise since they drafted Kenny Pickett. You are drawing dead as a team if you bring him back. We know what Aaron Rodgers is at 42 years old. He is no longer a quarterback that's capable of getting the Steelers past just an invite to the playoffs. And being the 6th or 7th best team in the AFC, that's not being relevant. That doesn't make you a Super Bowl contender. That just means you're cannon fodder for whoever you play wild card weekend.
Yeah, and I would agree from this standpoint that Aaron Rodgers didn't play his best football or MVP-like. But I also have to sit here and remind you that the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers, they grew up this season. If you talk to a lot of guys in that locker room, he forced those guys to grow up. Now, the production always wasn't there, and I think largely because of the scheme. Arthur Smith lives in a 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. We didn't get the best out of that. DK Metcalf, we saw a shell of him, especially late in the season. So they're going to have to figure out in the wide receiver 2 position who's going to be the guy outside DK that can have another impact. They're going to have to figure out that. I think if they revamp this roster with Aaron Rodgers, you're going to get a shot. You're going to be surprised that this offense can hum. Numbers don't scare me. I'm never infatuated with what a guy can do or cannot do. I like to see the tape, and I like to see a guy produce. What I see is an old guy who can still spin it, a guy who's still competitive, a guy who still commands a locker room, and an old man who's fiery and ready to go on Sundays. It's about having an opportunity to win games. Aaron Rodgers gives us that. And we also got to understand this defense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who we highly invested in, didn't show up in a major way for us at times. So it just wasn't on Aaron Rodgers winning and losing games. I thought he was a stabilizer, and we just need more around him to build, Andrew.
Well, he scored 6 points in a playoff game. Okay, so the defense was the highest paid unit in the NFL defensively at $170 million. Unless they're going to be the 2000 Ravens or 85 Bears, 6 points ain't going to cut it. If you actually look at Aaron Rodgers' production last year in the playoffs and regular season combined, his passer rating in QBR was lower than Russell Wilson with the Steelers in 2024. I'm here. Nobody was clamoring for Russell Wilson to come back. Look, even if Aaron Rodgers gives you similar numbers or improves them a little bit from last year, what does that do for the Steelers in the big picture or the long term? So they're more competitive in the playoffs. Great. They're picking 21st or 22nd again. That gets you further away from the next guy who's going to be your franchise quarterback. Willie, you were on the field with a guy that took you 87 yards to win a Super Bowl. The Steelers got him because they went 6-10 the season before, not because they were dead set on being 10-6 and going to the playoffs. Terry Bradshaw, a colleague here at Fox, he's got 4 rings. Why? Because they went 1-13 the season before he showed up. That's how we got him. So you're not the only person who feels this way, Willie. I know the organization does. But this fallacy or myth that the Steelers have to be decent every year, their 2 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks happened because they stunk the year before they got him.
So, Pony, that's interesting, and I know you were addressing Willie there, but, Willie tells me every time I bring this up that they just cannot stomach a rebuild. But you just referenced it. The last losing seasons get them Bradshaw and get them Roethlisberger. You're talking to these people every single day in Pittsburgh. Because, hey, play Will Howard, lose 13 games, draft a quarterback next year, and then let Mike McCarthy develop that guy. Do Steelers fans, does the organization, and maybe that's 2 different questions, but does the town have the stomach for a rebuild?
Danny, they've played 9 consecutive years without winning a playoff game. Yes, they want something new. Mike McCarthy, even though he's old, yes, he's a very old coach. This is not a typical Steelers move, but it's different. It's not running Mike Tomlin back for another year. For me, that was a breath of fresh air. Aaron Rodgers would be a half measure because they're trying to get this, like you're saying, have it both ways, change of pace, but also remain competitive. Believe me, fans would be all for. I think more fans, actually, would sign up for Will Howard as the Steelers quarterback, including me, next year in Pittsburgh than Aaron Rodgers. Because, look, even if it doesn't work out, you have your answer on Will Howard. You know he's not your guy. And then you go into a deeper quarterback pool in 2027. With Aaron Rodgers, if he's good, there's no upside. He's probably done after next year. So I'm ready to turn the page right now. The last thing I want is for September to roll around and for Aaron Rodgers to be the Steelers starting quarterback.
Well, we live in 2 different realities. I definitely want to see Aaron Rodgers roll back out there. And I think the bottom line, if you used to roll Will Howard out there and he's god-awful, I think a lot of Yernzers out there will bark all over their terrible towel. I think they'd rather have an opportunity to potentially get in, to not have a shot and not play a meaningful game in December. And I know, and I get your point. They've been through playoff droughts. But nevertheless, I look at this team right now, this present team. One of the things that hurt them outside of having a receiver too, their run game has been insufficient. So my point is there's more things to do in the kitchen to build this team up. Allow the front office, Mike McCarthy, and everything that he has in front of him, allow him to build this team up. And we'll see what happens next year. But right now, I'm comfortable with Aaron Rodgers walking through the door. And I think more Steelers fans will be happy playing meaningful games in December than saying, you know what, can't wait for the draft. We'll see what happens.
Just wait a couple of months. He'll go into the darkness, and then, Willie, I'm guessing you're going to end up getting your wish. All right, Pony, let's talk about my team now, the Chicago Bears, because Bill Barnwell today wrote about some trades that he thinks should happen, and it included DJ Moore and a first-round pick, which is the 25th pick in the draft, going to Vegas for Maxx Crosby and a 2027 fifth-round pick. And that would bring Maxx Crosby to the Bears, and he would get to team up with Caleb Williams, who he praised quite a bit. On his podcast, he described their matchup as being back and forth all day. You could take a listen to Maxx Crosby talking about Caleb Williams.
Our matchup was all day. You know what I mean? All day we were going back and forth, and he's competitive, bro. I'll give it to him. Like he was, he didn't back down. He kept getting back up and kept trying to make plays. And he definitely earned my respect.
So something tells me Crosby would be open to teaming up with Caleb Williams. Pony, would you like that trade? DJ Moore and a first for Maxx Crosby. Would you like it for the Bears?
I don't like it. I love it for the Bears because, let's face it, Danny, and I know you have a problem telling the truth when it comes to your team sometimes. They were the biggest fluke in NFL history last year. All right, they had six. It's true. They had 6 wins when trailing in the final 2 minutes of games. That had never happened in NFL history. They were more like a 500 team than a team that went to the divisional round. Their stats were not good defensively. They were 23rd points allowed and I think 25th total defense. So they were bad, okay? This team is not as close as their finish suggests. They were competitive against the Rams. Congratulations on all your success, but to me, there needs to be a roster upgrade, especially on defense. And if you're telling me right now that you can get, I would say conservatively, one of the 10 best defensive players in the NFL, who Chicago would love, by the way, just his personality and attitude, and all you're giving up is your third best receiver, because Burden has come on, and Odunze is going to be the guy there, plus you've got Komet and Loveland, and a first-round pick that's late in the first round, that would be an all-time heist for the Bears, and yes, you could actually feel like they're a playoff team for next year, because without this trade, I think the Bears finish third or last place.
Okay, well, I'll address that part of it in a second, but I'm with you. I would love the trade. And I think that Maxx Crosby is a perfect Bear. And they were 21st in sack rate, 27th in pressure rate. And so, he would address a massive issue. Now, they spend a lot of money on their defense and their front seven because Montez Sweat is paid like he is, Micah Parsons, and he is not. And then the guy they signed from the Colts, Dio Odengbo, he had a terrible year, and then he got hurt. And Grady Jarrett was not good last year, and Pickens has only been okay. They have really, Javon Dexter has not lived up to his draft position. So they absolutely need to upgrade their front seven, and Maxx Crosby would do it. What I would say to you, though, about the Bears is, and for spurts of time, they were elite, and they ended up pulling games out, rabbit out of the hat, and all that stuff. That is all true. I'll concede all points, and their defense was atrocious, but their offense was so young. Caleb, Burden, Monangai, Odunze, all under 23 years old. They're bringing back all of those guys. They're bringing back all 5 offensive linemen. Year 2 in Ben Johnson's system, year 3 for Caleb in the NFL, I expect all of them to take a massive leap. So if the offense can actually perform consistently, like they did in stretches and in particular the fourth quarter, Pony, I don't see any reason why the Bears can't have a top 5 offense in the NFL next year.
Okay, great, but Danny, they have the profile to be a team that is a serious take-a-step-back team in 2026, and you know this. They were number 1 in the league in takeaways. They were best in the league at giveaways. Their turnover differential was by far the best in the NFL. Go look at the history of teams that do that. They come back to earth the following season, so they are not going to have the same turnover luck, and that is not going to produce an 11-6 record next year, even though, yes, They have guys in their offense that second year under Ben Johnson will do better. But I refuse to believe that they're going to take care of the football as well as they did next season. And that's went a long way in determining their record, Willie, last year.
Yeah, Pony, you're way more doom and gloom than I expected on the Bears topic. Nevertheless, man, I think if they were able to acquire Maxx Crosby, he makes them dangerous. I think the Bears go from a cute story to a legit outfit and then a dangerous team for next season. I think now you take the attention off Montez Sweat. Everybody gets realigned and be in position. And now you have Maxx Crosby, who's a closer, right? Very much like how Green Bay sees Michael Parsons. And I agree with you. They need some upgrades, and that's nothing they're not aware of. I think Dennis Allen goes into this offseason and say, all right, we put all the money in the offense last year. It's time for me to go shopping, and he will do so. You kind of upgrade the linebacker position, you revamp the secondary, and you take what you have in offense, the continuity and this leadership by Caleb Williams and the rest of this young outfit, and now you add a Maxx Crosby on the defensive side. I'm with DP, and listen, I love going against them. I think the Bears are a more dangerous outfit going into next season than you're giving them credit for, Pony.
It's just a question, really, Boney, of like, because I agree with you. They will not be number one in takeaways, and they probably will give the ball away more. And I'll give you one more where they'll regress. The offensive line will not be as healthy as it was this season. But can the addition of a guy like Crosby and the progression of all of those young guys in the offense overcome those statistical regressions that you and I are anticipating?
I mean, the other thing that is not what you want to hear is, even though he was spectacular with unbelievable throws late in games against Green Bay and the Rams, I'm also just not convinced that Caleb Williams is the guy yet. He was a 58% passer. He cut his turnovers, interceptions way down. They weren't very high his rookie year to begin with, but it's not like he's a reckless player per se. But we're comparing him to guys from his draft class like Jaden Daniels, who's already gone to an NFC Championship game, and Drake May, who just took a team to a Super Bowl and had the highest completion percentage in the NFL and was a vote shy of being the MVP. I think there's a scenario next year where he is the third quarterback in his division behind Jared Goff and Jordan Love. So you don't want to hear that, but that's just the reality of things. Great, spectacular, clutch player. I don't see him as an elite player in a 60-minute football game enough, though.
Go get Maxx Crosby. Go get a defense. And I will bet on his talent and his coach any day of the week. Pony, we will talk to you a little bit later on in the show. Good stuff.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.